All right, so we're back in the FITSNews studio. We got a very special guest today, folks. A guy I've come up with. We've done battle. We've been on the same side on a few races, but a guy who is known by everybody in the Palmetto political universe and has lately become known in some other settings. We'll talk a little bit about those, but he's got a new book coming out. We're going to talk about that as well. Wes Donehue, welcome to the studios, brother.
Thanks, brother.
You are, I mean, I got to say, I've never seen, this is the first studio guest. He's got his signature
like that
on the shirt. That's like...
Well, I got to tell you about my cufflinks because I've had these for a few years now. My wife bought them. They're rhinos. And she bought them specifically because you called me the rhino herder extraordinaire. And I loved it. So about 2 weeks later, she bought me these rhinos. And I've been sporting them ever since.
Rhino
so
cufflinks.
These are my FITSNews cufflinks. The rhino herder extraordinaire. I appreciate that title.
That is like...
One of my many titles.
But I've never seen... Like, most people get the initials. Like
yeah.
But that's your signature.
It is. Yeah.
Like, how do they even do that?
I got a guy, man. You know.
I feel like the guy in... What is that, velvet?
Right. I'm kind of a clothes whore, man, so I don't know.
Well, I dig it, man. And I got to tell you this. I've been following the run. You were going to do a 100-mile run.
Yeah. You want to talk about my biggest failure? No, so I've become quite the endurance athlete, man. A lot of triathlons, Ironman, too many marathons to count. And I was attempting my first 100-miler and got injured on mile 50. I was running from Key Largo to Key West. And on mile 50, I rolled my ankle and ruptured some tendons. And I stumbled another 21 miles and got to mile 71 before I couldn't walk anymore. So I called it quits at 71. First time I've never not finished, but I just signed up for my second 100-miler December 28th. So we'll see what happens to that one.
So I've got functioning tendons and can barely do 3 miles. So that's amazing, man.
I enjoy the pain, man.
So
it's my outlet from politics. It's how I vent all the frustration.
Yeah. I mean, what got you into it?
You know, it's a weird story, man. I never grew up athletic, never played team sports, never was like in high school sports. And about 8 years ago, I was living here in Columbia before I moved to Charleston and was feeling really just bad. And went to the doctor and he said, "You've got about the highest blood pressure I've ever seen in someone your age. What is it?" And I was like, "Well, it's probably the stress of politics." And he's like, "Well, you need to start working out." So because I was never like overweight, right? I've always just had like a small frame, so you kind of figure you're healthy,
sure,
right? But evidently I wasn't, so I joined a men's workout group here in Columbia called F3, and I just became obsessed with it. I ran like a 5K race, my first race ever, and loved it.
Just how long ago was that?
That was probably 8 years ago.
And you're running 100-mile races.
And now, 25 marathons later, 2 Ironmen. I became obsessed with it, man. It's my hobby. Some people fish, some people hunt, some people play golf. Yeah. Endurance has become my hobby. It's just what I do. Yeah, it's my thing.
Yeah. When it takes the stress off, man, that's the whole point of it.
Yeah,
right?
Man. I mean, what we do is stressful, and it's around the clock, and you never actually have time off, and then you add on 3 children and a wife on top of that, 50 employees, and it's just stressful. So it's just an outlet to vent all that
beautiful
stress.
Family, by the way. We'll pull up a clip here.
Thanks,
real quick.
Man. They're everything.
Gorgeous family, man. Gorgeous family, and obviously business booming. But I want to go back though. It wasn't always this good for you, was it? You came up.
Yeah.
The word I always hear is wrong side of the tracks.
Yeah.
Tell us.
So
Goose Creek. Tell us.
So I'm originally from Walterboro, and I eventually made it to Goose Creek after my parents divorced. But I grew up in poverty. Was brought home from the hospital in a single wide trailer with holes in the floor. I would go back and look at my baby book. My wife was showing me these pictures. She was like, "Is that a hole in the floor of the trailer?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's how we grew up." And very violent marriage. My parents. Eventually, my mom left my dad, and we grew up in Section 8 housing on welfare, food stamps, Medicaid. Every kind of government subsidies. And if it wasn't for government, really, we would have been homeless. My dad in and out of prison for selling drugs. Eventually he died of cancer, but the doctor told me it was really meth because he had no immune system. By the time he got cancer, he looked like one of those meth heads, no hair, no teeth. Mom died of an opioid overdose. So it was a rough upbringing, and somehow just kind of worked my way out of it and trying to provide better for my kids.
Tell us a little bit about it, because I remember when you first got into politics, everyone was like, "Who is this MFer?"
Yeah.
Because you got under people's skin. I remember races working against you. It's like, this guy, what an asshole.
Yeah,
right?
I think when you're younger, when you're younger, you just you think differently, right? And you just think, well, I don't give a shit. I'll just cut this person's ass. And you don't really think about the other person on the other side, that, you know, every human is just going through a human experience. You know, you treat them like the enemy, like they're the devil. Right. You don't treat them like they're actually a human. And I just didn't care, man. I would just gut anybody I could because I just wanted to win races. And I did piss a lot of people off. Yeah, man, I think when you grow up, you realize what life's really about, especially when you have children. I think changes everything for everybody. And, you know, everybody, it's very cliche to say that having children's a game changer, but it doesn't just change your day-to-day routines. It also just changes the way your brain works and the way you see other people. And I still want to win races. I just win races in a slightly different way. My mentality is just a little bit different. I try not to be an asshole in winning. Well, sometimes you got to be, but I don't take it personal like I used to. You know, growing up, it's Sacramento politics. Everything's very personal. It is. And you know, when we were growing up, there was these factions like the Quinns versus the Tompkins family. It was like the mob, really, and it's changed a little bit. But I don't take it as personally. There's not that hatred that everybody used to have at each other. You go have beers afterward with people, or hang out after socially. It's a lot different now, man. I just try not to have any animosity against the people that are on the other side. You've been successful. I mean, and it's easier to do that when you're successful, right? Well, the problem with Sacramento politics is it's such a small pond, and everybody becomes so obsessed with it that they can't grow in their careers and actually make money or go national because they're so obsessed with this gutting the Quinn or the Tompkins guy. And once I got out of that bubble and started thinking nationally, I was able to grow the firm. You know, we're over 50 people now and doing some of the biggest races in the country. I mean, we're doing Herschel Walker's race in Georgia right now, which is going to be probably the biggest U.S. Senate race of all time. Yeah. And we're doing U.S. Senate races, congressional races, governor's races across the country. And that's because I got out of my own way. And a lot of people in politics, especially here, just refuse to get out of their own way. Is it all digital work, or are you doing digital strategy? Strategy, digital, and we've become a TV firm also. So like some of the ads you're seeing on TV in Georgia for Herschel are from my shop. That's great. Some of the ads you saw for Lindsey Graham here were out of my shop. Ugh. You know. Thanks a lot for that, man. Well, I hear you. But I love Lindsey. But the creative we did with Lindsey, I was very, very proud of. Yeah. Well, that race got nationalized. I keep telling people he should go to the grave of Ruth Bader Ginsburg every morning and put a flower there because, boy, he was in trouble until that happened, and that race kind of got nationalized. As you look at it, and again, I do want to talk about the book at some point, but having you here, you know a lot about all these races. You know about the upheavals in South Carolina politics. You did mention it's a small pond, but it's a small pond with big stakes, particularly every 4 years. Talk about that, how that impacts the national game and the candidates rolling through, and what do you see for 2024 with the presidential race? Yeah, well, bigger picture, I think it coming through every 4 years creates this, it creates the industry that you see here. South Carolina politics is so hot. Everybody always asks, why is South Carolina always in the news? Why do you operatives, why is it all so crazy? It's because of what Lee Atwater did, really, and created here with the presidential primary coming through, and it's created this industry of operatives. And I don't think you would have that if the presidential cycle didn't come through every 4 years. As far as this next time around, I think it all depends on what Nikki's going to do, depends on what Tim's going to do, and most obviously depends on what President Trump is going to do, right? I mean, typically, South Carolina is a real battleground, but if Trump runs, it's not going to be. And then if Nikki runs, does anybody even really give up a real fight here in South Carolina? So I think you're going to see a different primary this time, because if Trump doesn't run, Nikki's obviously going to run. What if they run together? Well, then there's obviously going to be no race here in South Carolina. And some of us South Carolina operatives lose a lot of money. That national, and again, assuming that would happen, Trump would have to hire a really, really good food taster for that to happen. If you see Trump and Haley on a ticket, are they unbeatable nationally? I mean, certainly in any kind of a primary. I mean, the only person that could even give them a shot or give them a race would be DeSantis. General election, I would, in this environment, they win.
Trump obviously planning his, I think there was a report yesterday, he's going to plan his launch in Florida in DeSantis' backyard.
I didn't see that.
He wants DeSantis to see his firework display.
I will tell you that, you know, we're a national firm, so I'm always on airplanes. We're traveling everywhere. I don't go anywhere without hearing someone talk about DeSantis in every state I go to.
Favorably.
Oh my God, yeah. It's Trump, and then right under him, DeSantis. DeSantis walks on water right now among Republican primary voters in the country.
Unlike you, he's a self-made man. He's not one of these fortunate sons that had it handed to him. He worked for it.
Yeah, I'm a big fan.
Yeah,
good dude.
Yeah. All right, let's talk a little bit about the book. What motivated you to do it?
Yeah.
What's the objective? What do you want people to take away from it?
Yeah, so besides all the political work, we've also been doing a ton of corporate work. And our biggest case study to this day was SeaWorld. We're the company that jumped in and helped save SeaWorld after the Blackfish documentary and PETA went after them. Much of the book is telling that story. This is how we saved SeaWorld. And then also my own personal story. I mean, you wrote about how I was canceled 3 years ago. I own a brewery, 2 locations, and obviously I went through my own, you know, shitstorm. And you wrote about it, and very favorably. Thank you. I talk about that in the book. You're mentioned in the book a couple times, actually, because turns out many of my controversies in my life you were in the middle of somehow. But so I talk about that in the book also. But I think I wanted to write this book for business folks to show, hey, here are the 13 lessons we used for SeaWorld. But, you know, this cancel culture mob really started way up here with, you know, celebrities and corporations, but now it's down to the small business person and then the individual like myself, and then even employees or cops or teachers. And this can happen to anyone now. So I wrote this book of, you know, here's what could happen to you. It's really not an issue of if, but a matter of when the cancel culture mob comes for either you or someone close to you. And here are some lessons we've learned along the way that can help you survive it.
Sort of like a reputational management.
Yeah, it's a brand reputation book.
Handbook.
That's exactly right. Yeah, so it's, you know, 13 rules for surviving cancel culture or other public relations crises.
Yeah. But it's one that's got not just examples from your professional life, but what you've lived.
Yeah, so it's a combination of stories people are hearing. Dave Chappelle, Joe Rogan, obviously, other big cancel culture stories over the last few years. But then what we did and saw working with SeaWorld, and then what I felt personally, because, you know, what's happening is really screwed up, man. When the mob comes for you, they're not just trying to shame you. They're not trying to just silence you. What I felt going through it is they're trying to personally destroy you. These people aren't going to be happy until you can never make another dollar or, you know, put food on the table for your family again. So it really is it could really lead to disaster for an individual if they're not careful. If one of their employees accidentally says the wrong thing and then a review gets on Yelp and that Yelp review then goes viral, it could destroy a restaurant or any kind of a business. So we're in a real dangerous situation right now where these business owners have to be careful.
But isn't part of it also, you know, I mean, obviously people say and do stupid things. They open themselves up. It's like the whole mad you tested positive, quit doing blow, right? I mean,
but look, some people deserve it, right? If you're like Kevin Spacey, for example, and you're just a creep, or if you're Bill Cosby, like some people do really bad things that deserve to be canceled. But sometimes people just accidentally screw up. Again, we're just all humans going through a human experience. We all try to crack jokes, right? And occasionally a joke might go the wrong way or something you said might go the wrong way. You know, you might tell a female employee, you're always talking about, you know, females on your blog and talking about their high heels and everything. What if one of your female employees comes in and you just say, hey, that dress looks really nice on you today. And next thing you know, you're being charged with sexual harassment when really you were just trying to be a nice guy. Or in my case, you were trying to tell a joke on Twitter that wasn't really funny, that went the wrong way. And next thing you know, you got staff walking out of your brewery and people protesting you outside of the location.
And you canceled yourself, though. You deleted your Twitter account, man. You had how many followers did you have?
10,000. No, I didn't delete the Twitter account because of that. I, before elections, often deactivate my account because, frankly, I'm one of these people that if I have any addiction in life, it's my cell phone and the apps. So what I do is I'll get, I need to focus. So I'll just shut things down for 3 or 4 months. And what happened with this is I accidentally deactivated it for about 1 month too long, and I lost the username.
You can't get Elon Musk to work on that for you?
No, another Wesley Donehue, some teenage photographer in North Carolina snapped it up, and he's all around the world, like in Ireland and Scotland, posting pretty pictures. So.
But is he a knife fighter?
He looks very meditative and calm, so I'm going to go ahead and say no.
Tell us, okay, the knife fighter thing, because that's become, and we'll talk about the case
it's weird.
That's become, a term of art in a moment. But where does it originate? Is that something you called yourself? Is that something somebody called you? Or?
Man, this thing has really gone crazy. So in 2016, Politico, I was working for Marco Rubio. I was leading his national digital strategy for his presidential campaign.
Yeah, you guys hacked and took my website down, didn't you? The week before. I'm kidding.
No, shit, I was about to say, did we? I'm sitting here thinking, like, did we do that? No.
It's all forgiven, man.
So in 2016, Politico wrote an article in which they called me one of Marco Rubio's knife fighters. And I thought it was funny. So when I launched my personal website for my brand, I put up on there a knife fighter, Politico. Cool. Well, when Mark Tinsley decided to subpoena all the documents related to our Parker's case, he didn't name me.
Back the lens up. This is Mark Tinsley's the attorney.
The attorney for the Beach family.
Right, in the Murdaugh civil lawsuit.
Yes.
Okay.
In the boat crash case, I guess is what y'all are calling it. In the subpoena, he didn't call me anything. He didn't refer to me by name. He just said a South Carolina-based knife fighter. So then you guys picked it up and started calling them the Knife Fighter Files. And now everywhere I go, people are calling, like, random friends, because everybody's paying attention to this case. And what I didn't tell you, and maybe even Liz and Mandy don't realize, is that I'm from Hampton. I'm originally from Walterboro. My whole dad's side of the family is from Hampton. All my family's still in Hampton. I spent all of my summers when my family divorced in Hampton. So I've known about the Murdaughs since I was a little boy. So all of my family and everybody is still, they're all paying attention to what you guys are writing. So they find it hilarious, because every time they message me or something, they'll say, hey, knife fighter, how's the day going? And then even nationally, everybody's paying attention to what you guys are writing. So even nationally, friends are texting me and calling me the knife fighter. So it's taken on this life of its own. It's pretty funny. But
what you're and again, the civil side of this case, it's fascinating, because essentially you've got a boat crash in which a 19-year-old girl died. Others on the boat were injured. And it's a civil case. It's a wrongful death case in which they're trying to assign blame, apportion blame based on who was at fault. Was it the person driving the boat? Yeah. Allegedly, Paul Murdaugh. In fact, Paul Murdaugh was charged with 3 counts of felony boating under the influence, was facing some serious jail time. But then there were also on the civil side, the Murdaugh family was sued. A couple local businesses in Beaufort were sued, and then I guess former client of yours, Greg Parker, Parker's Kitchen, one of the places where Paul Murdaugh purchased alcohol prior to the crash. They were sued, and everybody's settled except the Murdaughs and the Parker clan. Now, obviously, you've worked for Parker. You did some work for him on the issue of tort reform, I believe. And so what you're saying is that's the extent of the work you did for Greg Parker. So we got to be real careful here, because I want to be very clear to you and your viewers, and obviously the attorneys that are watching this video and picking apart every word that I will say about this. I'm under NDA. So you were actually threatened before you came on the show. And I'll tell you that. I'll be very clear about that. So I'm under NDA, and in my contract with Parker's, I am not allowed to discuss any communications with Parker's, any of the work, anything under the scope of work. I can't talk about the work I did with Parker's. Okay. I will be very clear and talk about the work I didn't do, which I'm being, some of your podcasts kind of insinuate. And in fact, whenever we tweeted that I was coming on the show, I got a threatening email through my attorney from Greg's attorney, basically threatening to sue the shit out of me if I come on the show and break that NDA. Wow. So I am frankly not in the mood to be sued by a pissed off rich dude. So I got to be very careful about what I can and can't say. So doesn't that say something to anybody that's watching this? The fact that, they would preemptively threaten you before you come on the show. We go back to what, 2007, 2008. I mean, we go way back. There's a lot of stuff we can talk about.
In fact, my attorney, Sandy Sin, sent a letter back and said, these guys known each other forever. He's coming on the show to talk about his book. You're the first interview, by the way. I'm going on a massive book tour. I've got like 20 podcasts scheduled.
Man,
all right, we're talking about the cufflinks. I got 20 podcasts scheduled to talk about this book that comes out on July 12th. So we sent back very clearly, hey, that's why he's coming on the show. But I will talk about the stuff I didn't do. We can talk about anything that's been in the press. But so I just can't talk about the specific work I did for Greg.
But if it was just tort reform work, lobbying for tort reform, working lawmakers for, why can't you talk about that?
I have no idea. I don't know.
I mean, if you
I don't know why I can't talk about the work, because it wasn't anything controversial or backhanded. I don't know. I just know I can't talk about it. But I will talk to you about what I didn't do. And, you know, what's been frustrating to me is there's, in the subpoena from Mark Tinsley, it was insinuated very clearly that someone had leaked pictures of Mallory Beach's dead body, as well as, I believe, photoshopped a picture of Mallory Beach.
Correct.
And they are under the assumption that that was the knife fighter, which is obviously me. And I will very clearly state anywhere, because it wasn't under my scope, it wasn't something I did, so it can't be under NDA. NDA is covering the stuff I did do.
Right.
It doesn't cover the stuff I didn't do. And I did not ever even see or know that these pictures existed, much less leak them. I assumed there was an autopsy photo. I never saw it. I never even heard of a Photoshop picture until I read about it on FITSNews, on your publication. So I don't know what these people are after. All I can tell you is that these attorneys are in this giant pissing contest with each other, shooting these emails back and forth to each other, threatening each other. They don't like each other. None of these attorneys like each other very clearly, and they all just want to win. It reminds me of how our conversation started, how when I was a kid running campaigns and I just wanted to screw with people. It seems like that's what they're doing. But I don't know. I just know I'm caught in the middle, and every other day getting a subpoena or a letter from an attorney, and it's weird.
Probably getting some billable hours too. That's going to cut into your fashion budget, man.
It just seems to me like they're just writing emails to rack up billable hours. Man, I don't get it. I really don't. I wish I could bill like this.
Yeah, that'd be nice. So the Parker's case, as we look at, and I'm trying to figure it out too, because the photos you mentioned, the video you mentioned, those were actually not leaked to FITSNews. They were leaked to Vicky Ward, a British journalist who is apparently doing some sort of documentary.
And let me also say this. I've never talked to Vicky Ward. Nobody from my office has ever had communication with Vicky Ward, and I didn't even know who this woman was or ever heard her name until I read it on FITSNews.
She's quite charming. I've spoken to her a couple times.
I still to this day don't really know who she is, except for what I've read on your website. So I don't know anything about Vicky Ward.
So I guess what you're saying is that the work that you did do does not encompass the work that you've been accused of doing. Is that basically the bottom line here?
Yes.
So why would you get threatened like this with...
I don't know, man. That's why it's so weird.
You see the disconnect here.
Yeah, I 100% see the disconnect. That's why...
if all you did was tort reform work, then...
Yeah, and I can't tell you what work I did. I can't confirm or deny if it was tort reform or anything else. I can't. I can only tell you what I didn't do. And I guess I'm frustrated by it because it's such a low thing to do. And...
What is? Leaking
pictures of a young dead girl. And as you've got kids.
I do.
Way more than me now. What, you're like 8 or 9 now?
Just 7.
7, okay. I got 3 little boys. And if something ever happened to any of my kids, I don't know how I could even breathe.
Right.
But if someone leaked a picture of their dead body, I would scorch the fucking earth to find out who did it. And I would destroy everybody. Everybody. I mean that. I would destroy them. So I understand why the Beach family is so upset. And because I understand why they're so upset, I'm upset that people think that it would have been me, because I've done some dirty shit in politics. You know that. I ain't gonna hide that. But I've never done anything close like leaked a picture of a dead female or a dead person at all.
So for folks that don't understand the case, the whole context here is that obviously there's, as we talked about earlier, there's multiple people who are to some extent allegedly to blame for this boat crash tragedy. People are trying to figure out who's to blame. A lot of people have settled. And so what the impetus from Greg Parker, he wants to pin the blame on the Murdaughs, or apparently, based on what we've heard, pin some of the blame on Mallory Beach herself. Is that what he's trying to do?
I don't know. I can't say.
Okay.
I mean, I can't talk about what I think he's doing or what he is doing, because I've obviously had a lot of communication with Greg. I mean, we've had a lot of meetings, a lot of calls, a lot of text
What's
messages.
He like?
I guess I could talk about that, right? I got somebody behind the scenes, Christiana, telling me what I can and can't talk about. You know, look, I don't want to. Around the office, I refer to him as Lord Farquaad.
I was about to say, man, he's giving off some serious little dick energy or something.
Well, if you've seen
can
Shrek,
I say that? I can say that.
If you've seen Shrek, I refer to him as Lord Farquaad, and I think that kind of sums up my view of him.
Right. Not a very flattering description. He wants to win, obviously.
I just got to be careful. I don't want the guy coming after me because he's worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and while I'm doing decent in my life and can afford nice cufflinks, I can't afford a lawsuit against a man who just, is worth that much money.
Well, it sounds like he needs to buy your book.
It sounds like it.
Read it, or maybe listen to some. I'm sure you didn't give him, advice to stink the thing up the way he has at this point. I mean, I think this was a case that most people would have settled a long time ago.
All I can tell you, man, is we quit working together because of differences in strategic opinion, and that happens with corporate clients. It happens with political campaigns, and I can only give the best advice I can. And if someone doesn't want to listen to that, or if they disagree with it, sometimes you just have to part ways. And that happens with a lot of clients.
Yeah. Given your body of work, everything you've done, everything you're doing now, everything you're going to do in the future, the Murdaugh saga probably isn't going to define you. But as you look at some of the people who have been sucked into this kind of black hole of a story, people like Dick Harpootlian, prominent attorney who has built a reputation for himself as a kingmaker on the Democratic side. He is now very much,
Yeah, this is going to go way bigger. So Netflix has contacted me numerous times. Netflix is doing a big documentary. I believe a couple other news outlets or media platforms are doing it. So I think that this is absolutely going to define some of these players, and I think Dick Harpootlian's probably one of them. Look, there's a lot. The whole thing goes so far beyond just as surface level people were murdered. I mean, specifically when you start looking at the legal system in this state, it's so screwed up, man. I mean, the fact that Paul, and I guess this is, I'm looking at Christiana here, and I know you guys can't see her but behind the camera. I mean, I could talk about like public stuff that's out in the news, right? I mean, the fact that this rich kid, kills a girl, never went to jail, never spent a night in jail. The fact that, Gloria Satterfield, her case was just covered up. Stephen Smith's case was just covered up. We're a year later and still nobody's been charged in these murders. The fact that, police officers are paid off and solicitors are all connected to judges and officers that were there the day of the boat crash. And
that's just what we know now.
It just shows how screwed up the legal system is in this state. And whenever you start seeing like a Netflix, you guys are doing a great job, but your FITSNews isn't Netflix. And when Netflix steals all the work that Mandy's been doing, because she has been doing an amazing job, and a lot of press outlets are stealing the work that Mandy's doing.
Absolutely.
And, I hope Netflix at least has a very large disclaimer based on all of Mandy's work. When Netflix picks this up, this thing is going to go massive. And people are going to start asking questions about what's going on in the state of South Carolina. And I think people like Dick Harpootlian are going to get screwed.
Yeah. And that spotlight also then becomes part of that quadrennial cycle where people focus on this state. They focus on everything that's sadly so wrong with this state. And you and I have been selectively exploiting that, exposing that on political campaigns. And in
trying.
Yeah.
I mean, it's screwed up. I mean, look at the example that, you know, one of the attorneys sending me threatening emails is from a law firm representing Greg Parker, and that same firm is representing Alex Murdaughs, public relations.
It's incestuous.
What? Really? But that's South Carolina. Mm-hmm. It's all incestuous.
And people from the outside don't get it, and then they come in and they see it for themselves, and they're like, are you kidding me? I mean, we did a story this week on the Bowen Turner saga, the accused teen rapist out of Orangeburg, who was represented by a powerful lawyer, legislator.
I saw that.
And the guy's wife is the doctor for two of these rape victims, alleged rape victims. It's just, everything's incestuous, man. And
this state's dirty, but I honestly don't think it's unlike many other states.
But there's like 5 million people here, right? We've got other people we can go to. Right?
You would think.
There's no shortage of freaking lawyers in this state, is there?
You would think, man, but if you find a county like Hampton County there's never been any spotlight on, you know, there's a lot of places to hide corruption. Mm-hmm. It might be a little more difficult at somewhere like Charleston or Columbia where all these reporters are, but there's a lot of rural areas of this state. That's why you see all these rural county sheriffs going down here recently. Mm-hmm. Nobody's paying attention to these areas because they could just do whatever they want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of pockets of corruption, and you know, I always tell people, you think the big counties in the state, you think they're bad, go to some of these smaller rural.
Oh yeah,
you know,
they're like little kingdoms, bro. They're literally like little kingdoms where these people, like the Murdaughs, were kings, mm-hmm. and they controlled everybody. Paying people off. Look what's going on right now, man. I'm glad you guys are uncovering it. You guys are doing a phenomenal job.
Well, I'm glad you appreciate you showing Mandy the love there. She's done an amazing job. Liz Farrell, our executive editor, also doing an amazing job. I know you and Liz have butted heads a few times.
Well, we have, but Liz has been respectful when we butt heads. And, you know, Liz doesn't seem to play games. Liz seems to be a person that's trying to uncover the truth. And when you're trying to uncover the truth, sometimes you get something wrong. Where, you know, I understand why it was reported that I understand why the assumption was made that I would leak those photos. It makes sense. Mm-hmm. I'm the knife fighter. I'm the guy that's on all this, you know, crazy political shit. Mm-hmm. Obviously, it was Wesley Donehue if you just connect the dots. And, you know, some of those stories did rub me the wrong way. But after I explained this stuff to Liz, she gets it. But, like, if you're trying to just, when you're trying to uncover this stuff, sometimes you just have to make assumptions or you'll never move. Yeah. But I think she's doing a fantastic job. Yeah. And I appreciate her, you know, once I've explained my position in all this. And I also appreciate the fact that, you know, if Liz calls me and I say, hey, I can't talk about this, or Greg Parker's going to sue the shit out of me, she's understanding of that.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I'll tell you, this whole knife fighter files or knife fighter documents, whatever you're calling them, if it were up to me, I would just post a public Dropbox link and tweet it out right now. Really? I would.
Really?
I would right now. Yeah.
Why don't you do it?
Because I'll get the shit sued out of me. Like, I got a business. I've got kids.
You got good lawyers. Come on.
Yeah, look.
Live a little.
Well, you see what's already happened. That the judge says, turn this stuff over to Mark Tinsley. Mm-hmm. My attorney turns it over to Mark Tinsley. And then their attorneys go crazy just because we did exactly what the judge told us to do. Mm-hmm. Now imagine if I were to post it publicly, what would happen? I'd be sued out of existence.
They're clearly afraid of something, man, and I think it's going to be very interesting as that civil case continues to unfold what it is that they're trying to hide.
You know, I really wish I knew, but I don't. And maybe if I could sit here and talk about all the work we did for Parker's, we could uncover it, but I can't. And I can't talk about the conversations I've had with him. And I honestly don't understand much of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, it sounds like we need to watch the Shrek movies to get a good sense of what Lord Farquaad's up to. So
maybe.
Wes Donehue, we're going to put the book on the screen here again. guys, check it out. If you've got a brand management issue, if you've got a reputational crisis, this guy's not only got examples from his corporate life, from his work life, but he's been through it. So I want you to check this book out. I'm going to check it out. Wes, I appreciate you coming in, man.
Appreciate
we
you,
go
brother.
way back. Always good to have you in. Come in anytime. I'd love to get you in and we can just talk politics, man.
Man, anytime you want to do it, I'm around.
I appreciate you, brother.
All right,
Thanks
man.
for coming in.
See ya.